Hello YouTube viewers, I am Sania Asif and you are watching my channel Easy Learning with Sania. So today's topic of discussion is financial derivatives. Okay, so this complete video is dedicated to all BBA, BCom, MCom and yes, those who are doing MBA in finance. This particular video would be so beneficial to all of you. So let's move on to the next slide. So here we will talk about derivatives, especially financial derivatives. Okay, so let's move on to the meaning of financial derivatives and let's come on with the meaning of financial derivatives. Okay, so let's start with the meaning of financial derivative. Okay, so let me take a color. Okay, so here we will talk about what is the meaning of financial derivatives, and yes, we will talk about who are the people who want to invest in a derivatives. So what is the criteria or what is the process to get involved in a derivatives or to invest in a derivative? Okay, so try to understand with the very first point that we are going to discuss here is, let me cut it this. Okay, so here we are talking about derivatives. So let me went through with the first point. There is a contract between two parties. Okay, if you want to invest in a derivative, so there must be a two parties. Okay, and that contract which is expected to be settled at a future date. Okay, so there is a contract between two parties and that contract has to be settled in a future date. Okay, so now the question is, what is in the contract? Okay, so contract to sell something. What is going to be do, what we are going to do in the contract? So there is a contract in which these two people are going to sell something, and one is going to sell something and another is going to buy something at a future date. Okay, but at a price which is agreed today. This point is very important. Okay, so there is a contract between two parties. One point is clear, and that contract has to be settled out in future. Now who will be involved in that contract? There will be a seller and there will be a buyer. Okay, and the contract has to be settled out in at future, and the prices which is fixed now. Okay, the prices which is fixed now. Come on to the next point. The buyer agrees to purchase an asset. Okay, so there is an asset. The buyer has to be agreed to purchase an asset on a specified date at a specified price. Okay, so let's understand this with the help of an example. Let's suppose there is a seller and let's suppose there is another person who is buyer. Okay, so this person is a seller and this person is a buyer. Okay, now suppose the seller is a one who is a farmer, and farmer wants to sell his wheat. Farmer wants to sell his wheat. Okay, okay, now this farmer has want to sell his wheat to the buyer. Okay, now suppose there is some, the point which I want to make here is, this contract is only done when there is some kind of risk involved. Let's suppose the seller is a farmer, and farmer is thinking that after 2 months the prices of the wheat will get low, and the buyer is thinking like this, that after 2 months the prices of the wheat will be rise. So he is thinking with the perspective of rising the prices, and he's thinking with the perspective of lowering a prices. Okay, so there is a different perspective, and because of having a different perspective, this contract has made. Okay, Now the question is, what can be a commodity in this contract? Okay, the commodity, there is there is include commodities. Okay, the commodities could be a wheat. Okay, could be a oil. Okay, the commodities, let me write here. The commodities could be a wheat, WHEAT, wheat. Okay, could be a oil. Okay, could be a gold. Yeah, definitely the commodity could be a gold. Okay, stocks, definitely bonds, interest rate, and currency. So don't be get confused with these terms, interest rate, why there is involvement of interest rate or why there is an involvement of currencies. I will clear these points when we will talk about the types of derivatives. Okay, so let's so one point is clear, these people are binding in this contract. The reason is one, and that is risk, because they are somewhere thinking that there is an involvement of risk, or you can say to reduce the risk, this contract is going to be happen. Okay, so the point here is to reduce the risk. Okay, done. So yeah, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so let me remove all this, because let me remove all this. So here we have a features of derivatives. Okay, so we all know that features somewhere related to the meaning also. So everything will be clear here. Okay, so let's went through with the first point. The derivative instrument relates to the future contract. Definitely the instrument is related to the future contract between two parties. We have already read about this, that there is a contract which has to be settled out in future, and this contract has to be done between the two parties, and the one has to be seller and another has to be a buyer. And yes, there must be a underlying asset between the contract. The next point we have, value derived from the value of other underlying asset. Definitely there is a value, the value that is going to be derived. Okay, suppose the value of the wheat, when the value of the wheat increases, definitely then only you can say the value of the derivative increases, because the value of the derivative is completely the value. Okay, let me cut this. Okay, so the value of derivative is completely depend on underlying assets. Okay, now come on to the next point. Next point we have counterparties. Counterparties have specific obligations. Okay, under the derivative contract. Definitely there are two parties, one is seller and one is buyer. So these two parties have certain obligations. Obligations means duties, and these duties has to be performed by these two parties. The next point we have here is, derivative contract can either be direct or through exchange like future and options. Okay, don't be get panic. We will talk about in the coming next slide, or in the next video I will talk about types of derivatives. Okay, so there are basically four types of derivatives. The one is options, futures, forwards, and swaps. Okay, so mainly if you want to do a trading in a future and options, so for that you need a particular market, and that particular market is stocks stock exchange. And we have two stock exchange, we know. The one is Bombay Stock Exchange and another is National Stock Exchange. Come on to the next point. These all things will come in detail in the next video, when we will talk about types of derivatives. Okay, so don't be get panic. Okay, so come on to the next point here. Usually settled by offsetting rather than delivery of assets. Okay, so this happens. Okay, when you involve or when you get involved in future and options, there is no delivery of shares actually. There is So yes, so here we are talking about yeah, come on to the next point. The next point we have known as the deferred delivery or deferred payment instruments. This point is very important. So these financial derivatives are also called as deferred delivery or deferred payment instrument. Now the question is why these are called as deferred payment instruments or deferred delivery. The point is very clear, because the payment has to be made in future. So somewhere, not somewhere, but actually the payment is postponed to future. That is why these instruments are called as deferred payment instruments. Okay, so come on to the next point. Mostly secondary market instruments except warrants and convertibles. Okay, so yeah, definitely these are secondary market instruments, because to get involved, or to, if you want to do a trading in a financial derivative, so you must have to go in a secondary market, you must have to go in a stock market. Okay, which is we have two stock markets, and we have Bombay Stock Exchange, we have National Stock Exchange. So we have to go to Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange if we want to get involved, or if we want to invest in derivatives. So these all points are clear here. Come on to the next slide. Okay, so the slide is little bit uh, you can say not so clear, but don't we get panic, because I am going to remove all this and will explain one by one, so you have no need to worry. Okay, so come on to the next point. So here we have a point, traded on exchange. So definitely we are talking about some advanced features here. Okay, so we have already talked about some easy or simple features. Now we are talking about some advanced features. So traded on exchange. So for, if you want to do a trading in derivatives, so for that you need a stock exchange. We have a two stock exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange, and we have a National Stock Exchange. Okay, we have Bombay Stock Exchange and we have National Stock Exchange. Okay, come on to the next point. The next point we have no compulsory physical trading of underlying asset is necessary. Okay, so there is no need of physical trading, because when you know the underlying asset is usually a shares. Okay, if you want to I will talk about in detail when I will upload a next video about the types of derivatives. So actually the when you do a trading in options and options and futures, so for that you need a underlying asset, and in that case underlying asset is shares. Underlying asset is shares, so there is no need of transfer of shares. Okay, so this particular trading has to be done without even involvement, without even physical delivery of shares. Okay, so come on to the next point we have here. No transaction in derivative takes place in future. Yeah, there is no need of transactions. Okay, yeah, there is no need of physical delivery, and yes, there is no need of transactions at all. Okay, the another point we have hedging device. This point is very important. Hedging device, these in financial derivatives are also known as hedging device. Why these are known as hedging device? Because it these derivatives basically reduces the risk of two parties, because the two parties are coming in contract. The reason is only one, uh, to reduce the risk. Okay, and yes, the next point is talking about uh, derivatives have low transaction cost. Definitely this point is very clear. Derivative have low transaction cost. The reason is only one, because when you do a trading in stock, in futures and options, so for that you need just your mobile phone. you need your demat account, okay, and everything will be done on your phone just by clicking on your phone, okay. So there is no need of physical delivery of anything. So there is no need of, because of not having a physical delivery, because of not having a physical delivery, uh, the transaction cost is very low, okay. The next point we have, derivatives are often leveraged, such as small movement in the underlying value can cause a difference in the value of derivative. Definitely, because I have already told you about this, that the value of the I have already told you about this, the value of derivatives, it's completely depend on underlying asset. The value value the value of derivatives is is completely depend on underlying assets, okay. Okay, so if the prices of underlying assets increases, the prices of derivative, or you can say the value of derivative itself increases, okay. So the value of derivative is completely depend on underlying, okay, the value of derivative is completely depend on underlying assets, okay. Underlying asset, okay. Okay, so I'm done here with all. I have cleared the meaning, and then I have talked about the features, okay. So I hope you like my video, you share it with your friends, and will subscribe my channel, okay. So what I'm going to show you here is not so important, okay. So please subscribe my channel, like my video, and uh, share my video with your friends, and your support will encourage me to do more. Thank you very much.